Hello, welcome to this week's edition of Greet the Week. Um, our topic today is the joy of responsibility. And so, how does that ring with you? Do you take responsibility and are you joyful about it, or is it something that you have to do? So, Jan is the one that came up with this topic. So, Jan, what was your thinking?
Well, taking responsibility takes such a bad rap. It's like it's a bad thing. It's like I'm getting blamed for something. If I take responsibility for it, then I'm getting blamed for it. Or I really don't want to be responsible for something. I just want somebody else to do it for me. It's so much easier if I can get somebody else to do something instead of doing it myself. But there's so many advantages of taking responsibility for your actions, your life, what you're doing. That I just thought we should talk about it. And I've got a really cute story to start off the conversation. It was with my daughter a couple months ago. She's one of these that hates bugs. Of course, we live in Texas. And you live in Texas, you've got bugs, you've got roaches, you've got whatever else. It's just it's just part of living here. And she would always get upset at me and at my husband, who's her stepfather, for not hiring a pest control people to come in and get rid of the roaches. Because she sees roaches, at night, after everyone else has gone to bed, she's still up, and that's when they come out, is when you've got it dark, and then you turn the light on, and there they go. Or you've got food hanging around or something. They're attracted to that. We've told her 1,000 times, but in one ear, out the other. Well, this last trip she was here, she was all excited, so all proud of herself. Mom, guess what? I killed a roach last night. I was like, oh yeah. She said, yeah. After living in Bali for all this time, I'm used to these bugs and I've learned how to take care of them. But she just seems so proud of herself for being able to handle the situation. Whereas before, she's depending on somebody else to do it for her. And that caused conflict and unhappiness in her, because she was very frustrated because there were roaches around. She didn't like the roaches. But once she learned to accept it as a part, because if it's bad in Texas, I know they're really bad in Southeast Asia, on an island near the equator, that she's had to learn how to get rid of them. And there it wasn't one or two, it was a bunch that she'd have to fight off. And so she learned how to take care of it. And then she felt proud of herself for doing that. And I think about, there's so many situations that we do try to depend on other people or to get other people to do something, change their mind or whatever it is. And that just brings up so much frustration inside of us. When we could just say, well, I'm the one who wants it. I'm going to take care of it and put this thing to rest. And once you do, kind of feel good about yourself that you took the time and effort and were able to accomplish it. So I just thought we'd talk about that. And if you have any examples or anything you want to share.
Well, I mean, as you're saying that, I just had all kinds of things kind of going through my mind. And the fact that we need roaches. I don't want them in the house. But we really do. There was one time I had some yard people here, and I had a bunch of stuff at the back of the house, and I wanted them to move all of that out of there and just really clean it up, And I was out there as they began to move it, and I mean, roaches just going everywhere. And all of a sudden, as they began to take it all away, and I looked at all those boards that were decaying and were turning back to dirt and everything, I realized, that they were doing their job. Now, they did occasionally make it into the kitchen or into another part of the house. And so it's boundaries. And so I gave a new appreciation for bugs that I don't like.
Yeah.
And here's a boundary. So it's having in that boundary and realizing that really everything in life has a purpose to it, whether we like it or not, and accepting that. And it also took me back to a cute little thing with my own daughter whenever she was little, was some bugs that was around our house, and she said she learned how to kill them without hurting them.
Oh, is that right? So how'd you kill them without hurting them?
Right. And I thought, well, at least if there is something that is coming within our boundaries, at least treat it with kindness. Don't half kill it or don't cause it additional pain.
Give it a slow death.
Yeah, yeah. And then the fact that whenever she began to realize the inevitability of they're worldwide, roaches are worldwide, whether I'm at home at mom's house that's really elegant or whether I am in some out of the way place, they're just there. And it kind of goes back to looking at, and to me, that would be responsibility, is accepting what is.
Right.
It is what it is. So what now? What am I going to do about it? And as we take that responsibility for getting out the raid or stomping on it or whatever needs to be done, then we can feel good about it.
Right. Feel
and
a sense
even
of accomplishment.
This is the first time I've ever heard anybody seriously in public maintain a pro-roach position.
Yeah, I hadn't either.
Mona, you're taking the position pro-roaches.
Yes, I am.
And I didn't know that's what we were tuning into today.
Well, responsibility. They are on planet Earth, and they do have a purpose. Everything has a purpose. And as we can begin to realize that, even within us, stepping up to bat and taking responsibility, or shunning it and not taking responsibility. I mean, all of that's up to us.
Right. And then just to think about it, those times when you don't take responsibility, how much is it wearing on you, trying to get somebody else to change, trying to get somebody else to do something? And that's just, it's just so much effort and so much emotion going into that when, well, maybe I can just take care of it myself. Maybe there's something I can do about it. And maybe you can't do anything about it, but at least where you're making the effort to do something, somebody else might be more willing to help you, seeing that you are putting an effort into doing something for yourself, and that works too.
Is it possible to take too much responsibility?
Oh, sure.
Well, everything can go to the extreme. I think we've talked about that before. And any good quality can become extreme, because you can be a helicopter parent where you're taking responsibility for everything your child does and making sure your child is happy. And
You'd retard the child's development, maturity.
Right.
Exactly. Anytime there's that pushback, this never works, that this always works.
Yeah.
And whether it is for the eradication of it or whether it's just for the realizing the fact that, there are roaches in this world, but let's keep them out of our kitchen.
Let's keep them outside. Let's keep them where they're supposed to be. They're not supposed to be in the house. And so we won't leave food lying around, and make sure we clean up. And
well, when you were first introducing this, Jan, you said something about the advantages of responsibility. So what are some of the advantages?
Well, I think it's feeling good about yourself for accomplishing something. Because if something's really bothering you and you've been trying to get someone to do it for you and nobody's listening to you, I think it's very frustrating. But if you take it in your own hands and do it, and you are successful, then you feel good. And so that is, I think that's an advantage, and it brings happiness to you. It helps fill one of those basic need buckets, so that you're feeling good, and then you want more of it. I mean, I can remember I used to be so conflict averse when I was younger, and then I started learning how to stand up for myself. And then I was trying to get other people to do things or to listen to me and stuff, and they wouldn't. So I just started asserting myself and letting people know if I agree with something, don't agree with something, don't treat me like that, or whatever the situation. And you may not get the end result that you wanted, but it does feel good that you are taking steps to do what you think is right.
Okay, so is settling it within yourself taking responsibility for something?
It's settling, yeah, I think. For me it is. It's definitely helping me to feel better and to accomplish what I'm trying to do, to continue to move forward.
And that doesn't mean, I mean, I'm just looking at world situations, you know, whether it is, well, I mean, I hesitate to even name anything.
Yeah.
There are so many world situations that become political and racial and all that kind of stuff. As we can begin to settle something within ourselves, it has a whole lot to do with it. And I know the other day I was speaking with someone, and I think you were there, but anyway, we're talking about food choices.
Okay, all right.
And how that whenever you have invited a large group of people, I mean, that is as much a part of who we are as anything, whether it is something that we've made by choice, you know, as to a food choice, or as whether it's something that is made for us, as in like diabetes or something like that.
Yeah.
That we need to be aware of that and make some options for those people that couldn't just take anything that's on the menu.
Right. Yeah. Before I became particular with what I eat and had specific food choices, I would eat whatever. But I was the manager of a group, and we would have group functions every once in a while, and have pizza or something brought in for people to eat. And there was one guy in our group who was vegetarian. And this was at least 15, maybe 20 years ago when this happened. So not like today where it's more prevalent. You see people with special needs with regard to their diet. And I would always make sure there were vegetarian pizzas for him. And he would always thank me for thinking of him, because he was just one person out of about 20. And I made sure that he was going to have something to eat, because you don't bring people to an event and where everyone's going to be eating and not taking into consideration that there's somebody, and I know that somebody had special diet preferences, and to take care of it.
And so thinking about that in advance, kind of goes to the this.
Yeah.
That's getting along with, that it's making room for, it's acknowledging the fact that that's not my lifestyle, that you're a person of infinite worth and value, and you're here, and we want you here, and we want you to feel a part of it.
Right. And that is, you do feel valued when somebody does take notice of your food preferences or whatever your likes are, and they make a special accommodation for you. That does make you feel like you're welcome, you're appreciated, and you're part of the group.
And so that joy of responsibility pretty much goes hand in hand with agreeing to disagree.
Well, true.
It's a way to keep the peace even in a difficult situation.
Yeah. And to be able to accept that the other person has a different view from you, and that doesn't make them bad or wrong or anything like that. They're just different. They're coming from a different perspective. And it's all about perspective. That's what creates our beliefs and things. And we all have different backgrounds. We've got different people we've come across, different things we've read. Some things resonate with us, some things don't. And so we form our opinions. But that doesn't make me a bad person because I don't believe in the same thing that you believe. But that's hard to do sometimes, because you can feel those emotions quelling inside you when somebody hits one of those trigger things. And I know you try to stay away from being political, but a lot of people don't try to stay away. They've got their views, and they push them. And for a while you can take it, but then after a while it's like you've hit the threshold.
Right, but you can speak out, take the responsibility of saying, yeah, I don't see it that way.
Right.
I mean, if nothing else, you don't have to really go there. It's just I need to put a stop to this because it's pushing too hard.
Yeah.
And let's just all get along. I mean, I know I took a personality test one time, and it came back with the fact that I believe if we would just get together and air our differences, that we can do something, that we can work together for the good of us all. And I do believe that.
Yeah.
But it goes back to that taking responsibility for the way I see things, and allowing you to take responsibility for the way you see things without jousting you, without trying to convert you, without because even if we do convert someone, or, if they do come to our side, if we do go to their side, I guarantee you it won't be by this.
No, it won't.
It will not be.
In fact, even if they start to agree with what you have to say, they're not going to admit it because
I know. My phone, I am the world's worst at keeping up with my phone. Well, maybe not the world's worst, but it just doesn't mean a lot to me. And anyway, whenever I go outside, I try to have a pocket big enough, that I can have my phone with me at all times. So not only if someone else would call, but, Garland doesn't want to come looking for me.
Oh.
Give me a quick buzz and ask a question or whatever. Anyway, so today I was outside, or I was going outside, and I left my phone with him, and I said, here, you man this thing because I don't have a pocket. And I'm going to be outside a little while. Well, I said that to say that. So when I come back in, he has got this little fanny pack for me.
Oh, does he?
And it has 3 little pockets in it, but one is just perfect for my phone. And that way, I can have it with me all the time. So, to be amenable, whether I agreed or disagreed, I went ahead and stuck my phone in it. I went outside. And when I came back in, I hunted him down. And I said, well, I hate to admit this to you, but it really does work. And so sometimes if we can just be willing to see where someone else is coming from. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to wear that thing indefinitely, but I may try to remember that at least when I'm outside. Because relationship is so much more important than anything else.
Yeah.
And being responsible has a whole lot to do with how we relate to.
Yeah.
How we relate to ourselves, how we relate to someone else.
I'm reminded of the solving circle from choice theory, which a lot of people don't talk about that, but you don't hear that concept very often. And it was with couples where you have when they're arguing, you draw the circle around the couple, and you consider the union of the two people as being the most important thing, and that you've got your own idea of what you want to say or what you want to do, and you ask yourself the question, is what I want to do right now more important than this relationship? And so when you think of it that way, you kind of think twice. Say, is this person really important to me? If this person is important to me, I'm going to take responsibility to do what I can not to tear that relationship apart, and to try to keep it going. But I can still give the person information and let them know that I'm not happy, but I'm going to do it in a way that I'm not going to upset the other person. So Garland, instead of fussing at you for not taking your phone with you, he was very calm and found a solution for you. He didn't really even force it upon you.
No.
Like
it was a suggestion.
More appreciative because you know that it's important to them, but they also considered that you did want to be inconvenienced about having to make sure you got something with pockets in order to go outside and work in the yard. And it's just all going back to taking responsibility for keeping that relationship alive. And then you do enjoy the benefits. It is joyful then because your relationship is better. And then something gives you something to laugh about, something to kind of chide each other about.
Right. Well, I made a little chart here in thinking about this, about taking responsibility.
Okay.
See how life is, that it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And so we don't stay in any one position too long. Well, I don't know. Can you see it? Is it backwards?
No, it's not. No, it's good.
Okay, because it's backwards to me.
Right.
But you see, so when is the best time to speak up, to take responsibility for where we're coming from? When would be the best time? Would it be the best time to speak up as to how, so anyway, so whenever we're up in this area, beginning to climb up in there, let me take it back. You know, we're probably seeking information or willing to receive information, or we can see value in it, and, you know, it can lead to some joy. Whereas if we're down here in this position, you know, that the roach is right there and I don't like it, then we may assume, we may be frustrated with it, or we may be, you know, and how we handle it leads to pain. So where is the best time to speak up, to take responsibility?
Well, I mean, when you're in the mid of the frustration, you're feeling it. You're feeling it the most, and you may act out in a way that doesn't come out quite right. But that is when you do it immediately is when you let people know that this is what I don't like. So I don't know. Is there a best time?
Well, in the midst of that frustration, that is whenever we get that urge to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then how rational, how relatable is it if we do it in the midst of that frustration?
Right. Yeah, it's hard to control those emotions.
Right. So as we think about it, you know, get some information from ourselves with a little thoughts, and, you know, we want to begin to take that responsibility when we're more in the ability to actually do something about it, as in to get up and, you know, get a fly swatter or find the raid or step on it or whatever it is that we need to do. It's whenever we're kind of on the upswing, not whenever we're in the complaining mode. Although you are right, sometimes it's in that complaining mode that we won't speak up until it's there.
Yeah, right.
And that's whenever it leads us into unrelatable positions.
Yeah. Of course, when you're going to be in that frustration mode, when you're seeing the roach, and by the time you start feeling better, it may be gone, and you've lost your opportunities. I guess it really depends on the situation.
I see sometimes some people have a habit of never admitting they made a mistake.
Yeah.
They'll never admit it. Where does that fit into responsibility?
Well, to me, it's out of my hands.
So
and it's letting, yeah, I mean, everybody has a boss. And that's why it's called responsibility. You know, somewhere it will happen, somewhere. And so I just take my hands off of it.
But wouldn't that cause them to make the same mistake again and again and again and again and again?
Well, maybe if they make it enough, they'll wise up. Maybe they'll begin to realize that this is a dead end, that this is, you know.
Maybe not, but then they're also probably feeling pretty frustrated down at your bottom. They're feeling frustrated, and they're feeling the pain and the anger, because it is. I mean, it is because you know it. A lot of times, you know you've made that mistake, but you're just not ready to admit that I was wrong. And that wears on you.
And it goes back to that ego brain saying you're right, rather than listening to our wisdom heart that says, well, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah.
And taking responsibility for, I continue to care about this person. I know there's someone that previously, anytime I was around the person, I was just looking for something to confirm how arrogant they were.
Yeah.
Because,
right.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of do that with ex-spouses too.
Well, you know,
situations that prove
that I was, and you know, wanting to always listen to my wisdom heart. The message that came to me was I wouldn't see that arrogance in that person if there wasn't some in me. So anyway, I began to begin to deliberately look at this person as axiom number one, we're all doing the best that we can.
Right.
And with that person, with their limited, from my point of view, okay, realize this is from my point of view, with that person from their limited abilities to speak up, from their limited self-acceptance, from their limited security, they had to inflate things in order to maybe have enough courage to speak up. And as I began to have compassion for that person, I began to realize, you know what? Yeah, I can see why you are so adamant about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's been so many times that you've been knocked down, knocked down, knocked down, knocked down, knocked down. And there may have been 1 or 2 times you was right in it. But no one ever acknowledged it.
Yeah.
And sometimes as we can just see the fact that, you know what, regardless of my off-puttingness, it doesn't take away the worth and value that I have as an individual.
Right. Right.
And as we can give that, take personal responsibility for giving that to the other person, because I can never give to someone else what I don't own.
True. True.
Because if I don't own it, I certainly can't give it away.
Right. Right. And that reminds me of something else that I like to say is that react not to the deed, respond to the need.
Right.
So often we get caught up in the things that they're doing.
Right.
And you don't really know the whole story behind it. You don't know what it is that's motivating that person to do that. So instead of, if you can kind of block out the action and say, okay, what does this person need? What is going on in this person's life that they're so upset, so angry, so difficult to get along with?
Right.
Show some compassion and understanding for where that person's coming from. Because they probably haven't been shown that, because they've been acting out so much and everybody's been focusing on the things that they're doing and not
Right. Right.
what's going on.
And there's a current person that I'm having that change of attitude toward.
Yeah.
But there was another one that you know it was just pretty much the same way. I mean, I just thought that we're such a anyway. And I realized that they had a child that was had handicapping and mental conditions, that had a child. And this person, in compassion, adopted both children. Well, I mean, one was his child, but he adopted the grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you know, absolutely went out of the way of taking care of that grandchild. And I thought, you know what? There must be something really special there to take in and to be financially and emotionally responsible. And sometimes as we can see the value in something else, well, kind of can open our mind.
Right. Right.
And as we can acknowledge the fact that another person has worth and value, we can begin to not focus in so much on what we see as their flaws.
Right.
It's not to discount them.
Right. Right.
It's just
To gain
soften the edges of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Taking responsibility, breaking the pattern.
And you feel good about it when you do it. So that's where the joys come from. It sounds like it's not going to be very, very much fun, but in the end, you'll feel better.
Yeah. And old Martin Luther King, in understanding what he could do and what he couldn't do and all that kind of stuff. And he says, my obligation is to do the right thing.
Mm.
The rest of it he said it's in God's hands. But you know, if I can't, I can speak up. I can say I don't see it that way. I can say I disagree, but I will continue to value you as a person.
Right. Tough as that is.
Yeah. And it is my responsibility, and it's really joyful. I joyfully receive it. It is my responsibility to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And the right thing is to respect you as a fellow human being.
I think that's a great note to end on. We're out of time today. So thanks to our guest for being here, and for anybody else watching this on the replay. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.